If we could just all take a deep breath together. Again. And one more time as we focus our intention on community. We gather in love. We gather in mutual support with open hearts, open minds, open hands, open spirits. Thank you for being here. May it be so.
May it be so.
Last week, we spoke about ideas about community, what community is, and all communities have a creation story. And those creation stories are made up of individuals. And we each have our own creation story, right? Where we're from. And I thought it would be good today to explore that idea of community through our individual creation stories, because we're the sum of our parts, just like Madonna Ministry is the sum of its parts. And so if we explore that a little bit, just briefly share our personal creation stories. And it comes together as it becomes reality. It becomes truth, the truth that we have, our individual truth and our corporate truth. All ancient peoples, I was reading something, Walter Wright Arthen at Earth Spirit says that creation myths are at their core origin stories for the universe. And when at the moment of our creation, that's our universe. In traditional myths, the void primarily plays a role as the site of original creation. This is its first and most dominant role. For us, however, its other role has become more important. In each creation story, order somehow emerges from sheer absence. The essence of these myths is its ungraspable moment of emergence, and the myths represent this moment in many ways. So do you remember your personal ungraspable moment of emergence, whether it's spiritual or professional or in family, at the very core of your original origin story? So I will start the discussion with mine. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, with Peggy and Charlie as my parents. And I grew up in Arizona through various educational and personal growth things. I am here today sharing community with Madonna Ministry. And along the way, things that contributed to my creation of who I am today are my religious conversion from Methodist to Catholic, and then into the Catholic Charismatic Renewal, and experiences with community through the Sisters of Mercy and through Covenant Community. And then, as a single woman, and marriage and children, and through all the deaths and healing and health issues that from my family, crises in my personal family, to where I am now. And it's all contributed to this emerging idea of the creation of community and how we hang together, and what that common bond of connection is, that glue, if you were, to think about it in that way. And there's all these little things right now that are expanding my personal community. I'm involved with the Shrine of Holy Wisdom. I'm involved with Madonna Ministry, my pagan practice through the Temple of the Creative Flame. That's expanding. And those connections through the shrine and the broader pagan community here. And through my educational endeavors with Cherry Hill Seminary, I'm completing a thesis project now, or paper, working on it. Heavens help me. And it's, going even further with, further either educational things that I'm interested in. And along the way, all of these bits and pieces from my family of origin to my family of creation, if you were, to where we are now. So that's my personal creation story. And I'm proudly 65, and going forward now, to still creating more. This expanding universe, if you hold to the Big Bang, it's always in motion. Just like we're traveling through time, we're always in motion. So that's me. And now I open it up to someone else to share their creation story and how, in your idea of emerging community, where you are now with Madonna Ministry. So I open the floor. Thank you for listening. I'm going to call on people. 3, 2, 1. Francis?
Yeah. I was about to speak. Thanks. So, I mean, looking back, I can see how all of the things, all of the choices that have made my life have brought me to where I am, and know, I try not to have regrets, but right now it's hard not to have regrets, but I know that things will open up soon. Anyhow, so I had my formative years, and then I had a series of relationships in which I was looking for the unconditional love of the mother. My mom did her best, but she was wounded, and my true awakening then was when Jennifer passed. I mean, I grew up as a twin, and I do wonder how my life would have been different if I wasn't. And I know some people think the opposite. It's like, geez, I wonder what it would been like to have a built-in playmate. Well, on the one hand, it was great. On the other hand, it was a distraction, and then it was also a tumultuous relationship. And so anyhow, when Jennifer passed was when I had my spiritual awakening, and prior to that I was agnostic, and I think actually, I sort of returned to an agnostic perspective. I believe that, life goes on, that there's life after life. I do believe that. I mean, but I don't think we as human beings really have the capacity to know what it's like until we get there ourselves. And I worked with a shaman for a couple of years after Jennifer died, and while I was working with her, I did a couple of past life regressions. One took me back to the womb, in which I remember like being there and all of a sudden feeling this bam, like right into me. And that was my twin entering. I mean, and I feel like he wasn't supposed to follow me. I had this dream that I was on my motorcycle visiting a friend, and he was on his motorcycle in a different part of the country. And he said he was coming. And I'm like, you're not welcome, but he came anyway. And so, and then we wound up leaving together because he was bored with me and my friend. And it's like, well, this is what we do, we just kind of hang and chat. But anyhow, so he and I left. It was 13 degrees outside. It was in Michigan. I mean, I think we started out in the South and we somehow ended up in Michigan. And I'm still trying to, 13 keeps coming up a lot. So I continue to look at that. And so anyway, I left him, so I wound up getting way ahead of him, and we were lost, and the map was on, we couldn't read it. And then I came across these people who were very friendly, but not helpful. And then I wound up just leaving on my way. But I would never ride my bike in 13-degree weather. And then, so that's, and I know it sounds a little fragmented, but that's the way I am. And then, the other past life regression that I did was all the way back to before I was born. And I was standing there with my soul family looking at the earth. And I'm like, those people need help. And I dove right in, and my soul family's like, wait, you're not ready, So, and that's been the story of my life, impetuousness. I mean, that's just, so that is who I am, is impetuous. Um, so, yeah. So then when Jennifer left, when she left, I took 2 years. I continued to work in corporate America, but then, as I was describing earlier, there were 100 IT people in one giant room. You don't take introverts and shove them in a room and expect them to do well. And I looked around one day and I said, you know what, I need to leave. And it's like, it's going to be like I died. It was a very weird sensation. And I had given 4 weeks notice, and then 2 weeks into it, the company displayed some extreme cruelty. And I quit that day. And then on my way home, it's like, okay, now what do I do? And there was this sign out in front of a church that said, now, you need to start helping people, which is why I came, right? I mean, that past life regression, it was like, those people need help. I need to come and help. But, we all learn that sometimes our help is unwanted or not appreciated. And so I've had to learn that lesson over and over again. And so now I try to help people who truly appreciate and want to help. And as I apply for jobs on my resume, I've put my volunteer experiences, and somehow I always wind up as a leader of organizations. So that's also who I am. So that is why I'm the leader of the Madonna Ministry right now, and still wanting to help and still wanting to make some significant progress. And something you said, Cynthia, about I was reminded of Kathleen McGowan's comment about how history is written by the victors, and it's not true. Real history is written in our hearts and minds. So that's who I am. That's where I'm at.
Paula, would you like to go next?
Sure. I think, again, my family was always chaos. And I learned to deal with it, and I actually learned to enjoy creating it. And then I decided I wanted to be a nun. And so I was sharing that with one of the sisters that my mother was close to. She shook her head and she said, they won't take you. And I was heartbroken. What do you mean they won't take me? Am I that defective? She said, no, because you're running away from the world, and I will tell them that. She said, you can't run away from the world. You have to face it. When you get out there and you get through college by yourself and you still want to be a nun, she said, I'll support you. And I'm losing my electricity. So I said, okay. And then I discovered boys and figured, yeah, she's right. Okay, fine. But I always wanted to be a nurse nun. I liked the white uniform. I don't know why. I just liked the white uniform. So the other alternative was, okay, I can be a nurse. As a nurse, I could help people. And I became not only their physical helper, but their spiritual helper without even realizing it. It just happened. Because people do trust nurses. They will tell a nurse something they would never tell their doctor. And I also became good at reading between the lines, understanding what they weren't saying, and had to confront on many occasions. But my life was still chaos, because in nursing, there are a lot of men and women nowadays who just want to control. I was having enough trouble controlling my own life. I did not want to control my patients' lives. So I was the oddball. I was always told it won't work. I always made it work. So that was fine. Some people loved me, some people hated me. I really didn't care. And again, I was brought up Catholic. But I always fought against that. And I've told this story before. At 7, I almost got thrown out of Catholic school and church for asking, do we have a free will? Father said yes. And I said, then how come the church and everybody's been trying to take it away from me since I was born? Did not endear me to the priest or the nuns. So I was always a questioner, and that used to really piss a lot of people off. And I couldn't figure out why. I mean, just a simple question like that, why can't you just answer me? So I was always in trouble. That was my middle name. But I was also the shepherdess of the smart group, the spiritual group. I was never part of the popular elite, but I had my own bunch, so to speak, all through high school, college, whatever. Because I didn't believe in being a follower. I believed in being a leader. So it was like, okay, I had several opportunities to be head nurse in several places. It never worked out. It was fine. So I started my own business. Got into a lot of trouble because I am a leader, because I am honest, and because I am a champion for the elderly. Almost lost everything I owned, and Matthew owned, for that belief. Fortunately, I found 2 very good lawyers who saved my life, really. And then I found the ministry because I really always wanted to be a priest. And of course, Catholic Church won't allow women that privilege. And I realized I'd been a priest all along. My nursing was my ministry. It was also my life, unfortunately, too much my life, until I met Matthew. I began to have a life finally when I got rid of my first husband and married Matthew. My life changed a lot. I learned what the world was like. I traveled. I learned what it was like to be loved, and to be able to sincerely love somebody else. I learned how to be a good friend instead of a backstabber. And I also learned how to cover my ass. Believe me. But I don't need to do that anymore. And Sally knows this better than anybody. So that's sort of my journey. Marrying Matthew. Matthew's the other half of me. As Kathleen's book points out, he's the other, my twin soul. And when I found him, I felt whole for the first time in my entire being. So he was my blessing, and his name means gift from God, and he is a gift from God. And he proved that even more when I could have died last year. He was there for me, and so was Sally, and I bless them both for that. And so that incident changed my life too. Yet I never thought I was going to die, but I knew I had to make some changes. So I've done next to nothing, which was what I needed to do. And now I have found my life again. I was just sharing with Cynthia and Francis. Friends of mine have opened a wellness center, and that's been my dream too. So I helped scrub floors, scrub walls, scrub carpets. I was there for their open house and helped the energy in this building be positive. Where it's going to take me, I don't know. But yeah, right now it's where I need to be. So my life is a constant evolving, is what I'm trying to say. But the day I stop changing and stop learning is the day I cross over. And I ain't ready yet. That's
Thank
me.
you, Paula. Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
Okay,
cut
I'm
you off.
done.
That's okay. Thank you. These, are our stories, and thank you for pointing that out. It's constantly evolving. We are change. We are growth. It's always going forward. Nikki, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I was born in Ohio and saw the hypocrisy of organized religion at age 10. So started my questioning journey. when I was in college, I basically took international religious courses and classes. I kind of became interested in the Sunnis and the Sufis and the difference between the two. Met my husband, who is Middle Eastern too, and was Muslim. And I guess it was right around the same time, no, maybe before that, I had gone to Hawaii a couple of times and fell in love with the indigenous people. And so Polynesia and Micronesia became a source of interest while I was in college. And I studied the dances and became a dancer. And so brought that art form back to Ohio, of all places, and performed with some Polynesian bands. And then I studied, when I moved from Ohio, because I'm a water baby, water sign, I moved to Florida, well, North Carolina, Florida, then Washington, D.C., all, coastal stuff. And when I was in DC, I started my tantric journey and found my first teacher there and understood the difference between spirituality and sexuality. And so that became a bigger interest for me. But those were in corporate days too, so I still had to behave as though I was a man making it in the world. And did some very good, successful things. I was the first in my family to get a college degree, first to get to six-figure income, all of that. But it didn't matter because I was still unfulfilled. So I came out to the West Coast and started studying my navel, different energy paths and pranic healing and that sort of thing, and then found my way to Sedona, which is where I ran the Spiritual Retreat Center. And we did a lot of transformation work with healing. And a lot of it was around sexuality and trauma and healing people from their past traumas. And then a lot of it was just learning to move energy through your body and rejuvenate just through, source. And so diet, exercise, mindset, and the spiritual connection were a big deal. And after Sedona, I think I came back to Southern California and then ended up in Hawaii again. Finally lived in Hawaii 40 years after I vowed I would do that. And that was a beautiful experience for the most part. And that was also spirituality, somatic healing, a lot of hands-on energy work down there. And then Pele hit and spit me out. So I came back to San Diego and ended up staying with some people that were kind, wonderful beings, but they weren't religious at all. And so even I just had lunch with them this past weekend. And I said I was part of this ministry and was a bishop. And they said, do we know that about you? And it's like, well, I lived with you for 2 years and we did Sunday morning service every week. And they just never, it was like, not something that they ever interacted with me about. So that was kind of interesting. But I think my ministry is carrying on through my work in longevity, anti-aging, and moving into new forms of the finance and economies with crypto and blockchain and all that kind of thing. So to me, I did a very deep indigenous thing in Sedona too with Native Americans, and Native Americans that were also connected to the star beings. So it was both the earth, fire, and then it was also the cosmic connection. And those were interesting times too. In fact, that's one of the shamans that I went to before my surgery this year. And she assured me that everything was in good shape. She gave me some exercises to do, some sounds to hear, to listen to, some essential oils, that sort of thing, to prepare me for my surgery. And I bounced back beautifully. And my vision has been restored to 20/20. It was at 20/60 before surgery. And I'm getting regrowth of the nerves in my skull and my face. So it's all good. It's just right now it gets annoying because it itches, but it's a good thing, a good itch. And so I think, with the ministry, to me, it's about transformation. And this group that I'm working with is an international company. Barely any are here in California. But the international flavor is that no phone call has less than 3 or 4 countries represented. And virtually 75% of the people there are speaking English as a second language. And it's been really wonderful. I mean, really wonderful to just embrace other people's cultures and other people's ways and have this sort of similar mindset of wanting to transform the way that we live in this world. And because it's sort of a longevity mindset too, we're preparing to have 20 to 30 extra years even post-retirement. And so what does that mean? And that means we're transitioning into literally being in our purpose day by day, in our profession, in our career, in our spiritual as well as, personal life. And so it's not just about a job. And in fact, I don't think I'll ever be employed again. I'm pretty much unemployable, but I'm passionately working. And I've got two brothers who are talking about retirement. And it's like, what are you going to do? And one brother says, well, I'm going to open a hot wings truck, a food truck. I said, oh, that's not work. He says, no, that's a hobby. It's like, okay. So it's just interesting to watch as people kind of evolve into their next way of being. I tell people I'm in my fourth career. And, I just think that that's the way. It's like we are now, choosing our circles and choosing our passion projects and working toward evolving as humans in this very human-centric place and loving it, hopefully adjusting in a good way. And that's me.
Thank you, Nikki. I like the way that you said that we're evolving, that transformation.
Yeah.
It reminds me in Earth Practice, the cauldron of memory, the
Mm,
cauldron of transformation. It's always going on. We're
Yeah.
always in motion. Thank you, Nikki.
welcome.
Sally, would you like to go next?
Nikki.
Unmute. Am I unmuted now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oops. Okay. We're talking at the beginning, I think, of your discussion. I was trying to get back into the meeting. So are we supposed to be talking about our journey?
We were talking about our creation stories, our individual creation stories, and how we came to be, because as individuals, we contribute to forming community. So we have the individual community that we're nurturing and emerging from, but we also have this community because we bring our whole selves to ministry and in community in Madonna. So I was asking people to share a bit of their personal creation story and how they're here.
Oh, okay. That's not what I got from what I was listening to. All right. My personal creation story. Well, I was born. Not really quite sure how to answer that. I guess I came into this life as a seeker.
We may have lost that. Oh, there she is. Okay.
You got me back?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I came into this world as a seeker, and wondering from the very beginning what my job was supposed to be,
When
what
it
my
gets
purpose
on,
was.
why don't we
Whoops.
move to Laura? Would you like to go next to share your personal creation story?
Sure. I was born in Davenport, Iowa. And I had two sisters, one 4 years older and one 4 years younger. So I never really was close to either one of them growing up because there was such a big age gap. When I was in elementary school, I started going to a congregational church because my best friend went there. And it was just, I just wanted to get out of the house because in my house, we were always told to be quiet and don't rock the boat. So I went to church with her and I got kind of involved there. I was confirmed there. I joined the teen group, had a lot of fun there. And I had a pretty large group of friends in high school. And I was always the class clown. And I think that was because I never got any attention in my home. So in my group of friends, I was the funny one to get attention. And so when I went away to school, to college in Dubuque, Iowa, both river towns, Mississippi River, we used to go every Sunday to a different denomination church just to check them all out. And none of them really resonated with me at all. None of them. So I was kind of lost spiritually at that point in my life. But I got married, had a child, and when she was 4 years old, my husband decided he didn't want that kind of responsibility, so he left. So I became a single mom at a very early age. I think I was 28, and terrified to be on my own because I had never been on my own. The night that he left was the first night I'd ever spent by myself. And I was terrified. I remember that night so well. But anyway, so I wanted to get involved in sports because I had always loved sports. So I went to the recreation department and said, how come there's no women's softball leagues and there's tons of men's softball leagues? And so the man said, well, if you want to help me get one started, we'll try it. So we advertised and 150 women showed up. And we had enough women for an 8-team league. And so I was put in charge of it because my degree was physical education. So that was right up my alley. And then in the fall, the same thing happened with volleyball. So we started an 8-team women's volleyball league, and I was in charge of that. So I found myself in a supervisory role, and then I actually became a full-time recreation supervisor with the town. And I stayed in that job for 30 years. And I worked under a very dominating male chauvinist boss who reminded me a lot of my father. And I think that was meant to be, that I was supposed to learn from that situation, how to deal with that type of person. And a lot of people got on my case about taking that from him, but for me, it was a matter of survival, and it was also a matter of getting a pension and having a great insurance policy, and that was more important to me than the abuse that I took from him for many years. But I always knew that he had my back, though. I think he just liked to take stuff out on me for some reason. But anyway, so what I would do is, another thing I loved to do was dance and music. And so I would go learn a skill, and then I would come back and teach it for the town. I learned belly dancing, I learned creative dance, I learned disco, and then I would come back and teach it. And that was really my passion. My music was an outlet for me. And so then when I retired, I took an early retirement because I had a part-time job lined up, and I wanted to get out of there. So I took the early retirement and got a part-time job doing what I love, teaching classes at the senior center. And that my mother passed away in 1994. She was in hospice, and I was with her last couple of weeks of her life, which was a very spiritual journey, those last 2 weeks of her life. I learned an awful lot about life after death and what to expect. And it was quite a learning experience. But so when I was teaching at the senior center, and I got involved in a women's group at Sally's house, and I loved that. That became my community. I loved those women. I loved the things that we learned there. It was a beautiful community. It was something I'd been looking for, I think, for a long time. And then I got into the hospice work, and that felt like where I was supposed to be. And then I got involved with the sound healing And I just found all these new passions at a later time in my life that was just really wonderful. I'm so grateful for all those gifts. And I have to give a lot of credit to Al-Anon too, because that was a major part of my life in my 40s and 50s, when I had just gotten out of my second divorce and feeling like I had a sign on my back that welcomed alcoholics and drug addicts because I was going to take care of you and fix you and get you all better. And looking back on it, that really saved my life, was that Al-Anon group. That was my community for many years, until the whole thing with my mother happened, and then I found this whole other community. And then through the women's group, I found Madonna Ministries, and so now you are my people, and you are my community. And I bring all those skills and experiences to this group. And my hospice is really my life's purpose, I believe, at this point in time. I felt like that's why I survived a major heart attack 10 years ago, was because I was meant to do this kind of work. I'm really grateful for all the gifts that I have received through my life.
Thank you,
And
Laura.
guys,
Thank
and
you.
okay.
Thank you.
Laura.
All of us share aspects of adversity and difficulty, and they're also part of our creation story. The very act of birth is an act of dying and rebirth, right? And so we're moving from one existence to another constantly, that moving forward in time. And so, even our births can be times of difficulty, but it all contributes to who we are and where we're going. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to Helena then. Helena, would you like to share your creation story? No pressure. Oh, there you are. You're muted.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to. It's been really good to listen to everybody. So thank you. Yeah, I grew up, I was born in Glasgow, Scotland, the UK. And my father was a Italian Catholic, and he married a Protestant woman, which did not go very well over there. And as a matter of fact, even to this day, my father is buried in a Catholic cemetery and my mother's buried in a Protestant cemetery. Neither of the two shall mix, so I find that kind of interesting. But as a very young girl, I don't know, I guess I'll just say it this way. I was like claimed by Jesus. I don't know, I just love Jesus. I think in both religions, in my opinion, they seemed harsh to me, and I couldn't quite wrap my head around it. But for some reason, Jesus was, I found comfort there. Very gentle soul, and I wanted to be a nun too. I remember sitting in the church going, I think I was just born with a very sensitive heart, and someone in my life kind of tells me I got this like wide emotional range. Like if I am someplace, and I'm trying to own this stuff today, because I can see a lot, I can feel a lot, and I think I learned that from growing up in my family as a very young girl. I was one of 6 children. I was the middle girl. My mother was very, very ill. She was in a wheelchair. My father was a bit angry, frustrated, who knows what was going on. And I had some siblings who were ill also. And I just gave my heart there, I thought that I could sustain it all. And that's kind of like been the story, my story all along. And I came to this, so that my mother passed away. I was young. I was raised by an aunt my mother's sister and her brother and my grandfather from the time I was 9 until I was 14. Very loving people, very stable life. Had a lot of friends and in Glasgow and a good stable life. And for some reason was decided that I was to come to America. Didn't really want to, but in my family, you don't say no. So I came and I started to live in America. And I think I really got away from any kind of religion, spiritual, but I've always been, as I've heard Sally say, a seeker. I read voraciously. I've always been seeking things. And so then trying to keep this brief. Yeah, I got married very young, had children very young. And then when my boys started getting older, I became very anxious because I think it's because my mother had passed away and I really wasn't sure how to be with my children. So I ended up going into counseling and got involved in the Al-Anon program because I was having a hard time letting go of my sons. I was so anxious. So that's where I really began to find a spiritual foundation. I loved the spirituality of that 12-step program. It talks about God, but it's not certainly wasn't a Catholic or a Protestant type of God. It was a much more gentle God, and one that I could begin to really wrap my arms around. And so I've been in that for like 35 years, and it's changed my life. I love the spirituality. I don't think I would have made it this far without it. And I met a lot of people there, and I have a strong community of people that I know. And I think the defining moment, if you want to say a story of creation for me, the defining moment of really doing some different work was when my husband passed away 8 years ago. I think I had never really felt any kind of deep grief or allowed myself to feel it. And at that point, I was in trouble, and I ended up finding another community of people that I'm still with. I have a mentor there now who is very gifted, and she took me and helped me to really start to feel on a very deep level. And I began to co-facilitate grief groups with her. I began to do some hospice work, doing some Reiki and some energy work. And I never, ever in my whole life thought I would ever do anything like that. So I was doing that. And I belonged to another spiritual group with these women that I walked. There's like 5 or 6 of us that all lost significant people in our life, and we've become very close. And I belong to that spiritual community, and that's been really wonderful for me. And so then where am I with that? And then I think that was the defining moment for me. And with that, I ended up finding my way to Madonna Ministries. And I needed to have a female version, someone that I could really relate to in a much gentler way. I'm really grateful for that. That's really been important to me. About a year and a half ago, I started seriously meditating with a group of people who are mainly Buddhists. However, I began to learn from them about being a human being, and that it's not about perfection. It's about being who you are and sitting with your feelings and being gentle. And so I've had to really learn to self-nurture and self-care, because I was pretty hard on myself my whole life, because I had so much given to me as a young person that I thought I had to take care of everybody. So now I'm really truly learning how to take care of myself. The other component that I'm involved is about a year and a half ago, on this meditation app, I found this man named Oren J. Sofer. He was a Buddhist monk at one point. I don't know if he is now, but he's a very gentle soul. And I just loved him. And I said, he reminded me of Jesus. And I said, there's my people. I found more people like me, and I really like that. And he's deeply involved in nonviolent communication, authentic communication. And I didn't even know why I was getting involved in that, but I knew that I wanted to learn how to speak differently. I knew that I wanted to take a look at why I was being reactive and why I would say things that was maybe sarcastic or reactive without even knowing why I was reacting. You know, I would like, boom, and I'd be like, I didn't even know myself. And I'm like, I need to figure out what's happening internally with me so I can. So I've been involved in that, and that's been quite the journey. Finding out what I really think, owning it, and then learning. And I'm just very, very new to this, learning to pause and not to say the first thing that comes into my mind that could be harmful. Learning how to go, oh, that's what you're feeling, without saying it to someone, and go, oh, you're feeling this, or you're, how about that, Helena? What do you want to do with this? And I'm learning how to really love myself for the first time in my life. And here I am, you know, I'm going to be 70 this year. But that's okay. It takes as long as it takes. And I think for me right now, I've been doing some weddings, and I did my first graveside ceremony through Madonna. And for some reason, it just feels right. I can't explain it. I'm like, and about 5-6 years ago, I got involved in a writer's group. I'd gone away to a writer's group, and I've always written. But I got involved in that and got some good feedback. So what I'm finding is that I love to listen to somebody and then hear their words and then translate it and present it back to them in a loving and kind and as best I can. But learning when I was a kid, I could take in a lot, I can see a lot, I feel a lot, and I'm still using it. And I think maybe now it's being used more in a positive way. So I've been doing that. So I think what I'm trying to learn in my ministry today is to walk as much as I can kindly and gently on this earth and cause no harm. First of all, to myself, is if I can do that, number one, then I won't have to do it outwardly. You know, I think it really has to come from, it's a very much of an internal transformation. And I think I've been reclaimed. I'm getting emotional about it because it's so deep in me. I think I'm getting reclaimed by a holy, I don't know, sacred spirit, call it Jesus, call it Madonna, call it whatever, divine source that came back into my life and said, yes, I want you. Do you want to show up here? And I'm saying, absolutely. Just guide me. I'm here. I don't know. I'm willing. And it's a very humbling experience. But I think for me in the world, I want to be a part of that rather than causing harm and being reactive and causing people, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, I'm emotional because that's who I am, and that's okay. So
Thank you for sharing, Helena, your journey. I think all of us, it's what you spoke of. I teach a curriculum, and part of it is the season of the seeker, and that we are all seekers, right? And we're all showing up together. And as you pointed out, Helena, you know, you're my people. I mean, you are my people. And I want to show up for you. And I thank you for sharing your life with me, because that builds me up. It's to use a Christian term, if you will, it's edifying. You know, it builds the community. Sharing our journeys builds us together. It's that unifying, and that we can journey forward together. So when you show up, it fills holes in my spirit, that I'm nurtured and I'm fed. And I really urge you to share that with those that you come in contact with, to show up with you in community with us. And my son worked very late last night, so he was not able to join us today. But you know, he's hearing, the door is open, so he's listening to us. But you know, all of our aspects are who we are in this moment in time. So thank you for creating community with me. I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your journeys.
So again, if you want to close your eyes and breathe in deeply, belly breathing, as Paul talked about. Feeling grounded in this space, feeling grounded with these people of the Madonna ministry, with open arms, open minds, and open hearts. We're grateful for our own creation stories. We're grateful for each other's creation stories. Grateful to be sharing this space, this experience, this journey, these changing times, these new beginnings. And also keeping in mind the people in our lives who need healing, the people in our lives, people who aren't in our lives, people who have no one to pray for them. Let's send out our love and light to those who need healing, and we'll speak their names now.
Jeanette,
Shawnee,
Eve,
Sean,
James,
Renee,
Ben,
Ken,
Joan,
kids, Karen, Matthew,
Gary,
Marianne,
Mary,
Gina, Louie,
Sam,
Yvonne,
So for all the names that have been spoken and unspoken, we ask for healing, love, and light. So be it.
so be it.